I'm Rena Romano, and I am a survivor of incest and sexual assault. And this is a safe place for survivors to receive messages of hope and healing. And my guest today is Dr. Liz Patai, and she is an Amazon #1 international best-selling author of her self-published autobiography, Life Launch: Surviving the Storms of Physical and Sexual Abuse. And she is a survivor of sexual assault and harassment. And welcome, Dr. Liz.
Thank you so much, Rena. I'm so excited to be on your show today.
Well, I'm happy to have you here. So,
Yeah.
my goodness, I had another survivor on the show, and she recommended you. I haven't read your book yet, so tell me, how did your journey begin for getting help and getting healing? Tell me a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so the help and the healing part of my journey really didn't start until kind of the end of the book, which is when I got into the 12-step recovery program. I mean, that was kind of like a big turning point in my life, as far as one of the earlier turning points. I think we all have a number of turning points. I know,
Yeah,
sometimes we're asked what was the one turning point. And
right.
that was the first one really at 25 years old when I found recovery.
Good for you.
But yeah, the story began, in my home, my family of origin, with a lot of dysfunction and things like that. So
Well, I think we can all relate to that, most of us
yes,
anyway. So,
yes.
so that's where your journey began in a 12-step recovery. And um, what encouraged you? I mean, there's a turning point, but what encouraged you to start into that program and start healing and finding Dr. Liz?
Yes. I think it was a relationship, the critical, what they call your bottom,
Mm,
is kind of
yeah,
what brings you into those types of situations, even if it's not a 12-step program, kind of like we hit a bottom at some point.
yeah.
And my bottom was very dysfunctional relationship with a person that was also supposed to be in recovery in 12-step program, but he was using, he had told me he was in AA, and yet I was seeing bottles around, and he was also participating in, some other substances. And so I called my mom, and I was like, it's like, when you don't know a question, ask mom, like in It's a Wonderful Life.
Mom
Ask
to the
dad,
rescue.
ask dad, yeah, ask mom or dad. Even though my mother is part of my issues, right? But I asked her, I called her, I said, hey, this person is supposed to be in AA, but he's drinking. Is that right? Because I didn't know anything about AA at the time. And she said,
Right.
no, I don't think so. I think he's supposed to. Anyway, but what he had done was, so it was very classically dysfunctional, in terms of domestic violence and things like that. We had been together for at least 6 months before that. We were working together as at the same place, at least at the same place. And he'd broken up with me, like, every month. It seemed like it was quite often. It was the breakups and the getting back together and the, all of that, mental
Very
and
dysfunctional
yes,
relationship. Yeah.
the mental, the emotional. There was some physical dysfunction, some sexual dysfunction in there as well. And the last straw for me, which is when I thought I was going crazy, he broke up with me again. He pulled my bedroom door open really hard, and I had a stand up full length mirror against the wall behind my door, which never do that. I figured I learned that lesson. And the handle just smashed into the mirror, and it broke in 1,000 pieces. And I'm a
Mm.
little bit superstitious. So to me, that was like, oh my God, huge bad luck. And I just started crying and bawling. And, I was so bereft. I was besides myself with just not knowing what to do. I was in the middle of a divorce from my first husband at the time. I mean, I was, working on that, so it was just emotionally, mentally, just I hit a bottom, and I just knew at that point that I felt my feeling I could describe as this, and I'll never forget it. I said, I cannot grasp basic concepts of reality. And for
Mm.
me, being so, smart and good in school and all this stuff, it was just, I was really in some territory that I had no idea where I was. And I called my parents again. And my mom answered the phone and I was crying. What's wrong? I can't grasp basic concepts of reality. And she said, Hun, she called for dad. Come and talk to your daughter. So she
Aw.
had a couple of other things going on with my younger daughter, with my younger sisters. I'm from a big family, so that's another part of my dysfunction. 7 kids total and
Oh, wow. Yeah.
5 sisters. And mom, so there were like, 7 women in the house most of my life. And
That's a
anyway,
lot of estrogen there,
you
sweetheart.
know it, you know it.
Yeah.
So my father actually, told me go take a walk, but that was one of the last times that I actually felt like taking my own life, because that
Mhm.
night I said to him, which I was 25, I started wanting to take my life when I was 15, end my life myself. So this was also an ending of that. Coming into the program was an ending of that feeling and a beginning of a new life for me. My dad said, go out and take a walk. And I looked at the road and he knew what that road was where I was living. And I said, I'm looking at this route number. And if I go out, I'm going to walk in the middle of the street. And he said, don't go for a walk.
Let's
And,
back that up a little bit. Never
right.
mind bad advice.
But what he said was, and this is really a very hopeful thing that I wanted to share with everybody, and I've shared it with some other friends and some family members that have been at their bottoms too, even more than once, thinking about, contemplating maybe ending their life. And he said, nothing in this world is too big for you and I to handle together. And that gave me hope, and that's really what my message is. And then he said, there's no problem that's too difficult for me and you. And then I added God, and he was like, yeah, me and you and God to solve. So
Oh, that's wonderful.
yeah.
And that's great that you had that encouragement, like with my TEDx talk.
Hmm.
Healing from sexual abuse can start with one word. I talk about how I got support from my family, and but a lot of people don't have that support,
Right.
so we're very fortunate that we did. And it's so what I want to encourage other survivors, if you don't have that support at home, there is support out there. Don't give up.
Yes,
Do not
absolutely.
give up. So when did you decide to write your book then? How long after that?
So that's an interesting story too, and there's a little YouTube video about that somewhere when you guys go out and find me, that talks a little bit about that. I had actually been told by a friend of mine when I was 15 years old, and I was telling him a little bit of my story up to that point. He said, "Oh man, you need to write a book." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, like
Yeah, there's
this
a
is
book
really."
in there, right?
So I actually really um, I had been thinking about it for a long time, and I had been jotting things down here and there, playing around with titles. Um, I really didn't write it until I started writing it in March of 2019, just last year.
Wow, that's quick. So, and it's
Yeah.
called Life Launch. Good for
Yeah.
you. How do you
Now, book
writing your
number
book?
one, though, because there's another
Excuse me.
person that wrote a book called Life Launch, and she's got a subtitle too. So mine is Life Launch Surviving the Storms of. And it call it book
Doesn't
one
look
because
like
it
we
only
do.
covers the first 25 years of my life. And so the next book is going to be more on the recovery and the healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, which is going to be called like Life Launch, a New Dawn of Hope,
Oh, good
something
for
like
you.
that. So yeah, didn't
Yeah,
mean to interrupt.
my first book, His Puppet No More, I shared my journey. But the next one for me, I want to share, what helped me in recovery and not one size fits all. I think you would agree with that. Try different things in your recovery to stay positive and healthy. So, what is the main message that you want people to get from your book and the work that you do?
Yeah, the main message is hope, because every time I talk about it, I get filled up. So forgive me, but because I don't want to, I don't want to cry on your show. It's like one of those things. But I really, as a survivor of suicide, also, and what I call it, surviving of both sides of suicide. My husband took his life, ended his life,
Mm,
and I also wanted to numerous times. And
and I
all the
get
other
that.
things,
And
right?
I get that. Yeah, I understand that completely.
Yes.
I've
And
been there.
all the other traumas that you talk about and that you talk with your other guests about, I really feel like we're asked when we're preparing for speaking, by my my sort of group that's helping me train and learn how to do this well and get my message out. We're asked, what's the one thing? What is the one thing? And I was like, oh, it's not just one thing. Just like you said, there's a whole list of things. Well,
Well,
when
there's
I
a whole list
realized,
of things, but and,
right,
and I'm going to interrupt you there because I am a speaking coach.
there
So,
you go.
and what is the one thing that you want to share with that audience that
Yeah.
day? And today,
Uh,
what I want to share with them is hope, and that people can see that there is recovery after so much trauma. There is hope and healing, and that there is life after trauma. Um,
yes.
so yeah,
That's
so
it.
that
That's
it
it.
there is.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
my message for today and every day. If I have to pick one thing, it really is hope. And then I did want to add to what you said, which is, so how do I get the hope? And is a that's like the big part of my message. That's what comes after the one thing is hope. This is how you do it. This is how I did it. So that's what my book is about. It's about how I got through those first 25 years as a teenager. So I actually am ranking in very high in these categories for teens and young adults, like domestic violence and sexuality and suicide and stuff like that, because I'm sharing what it was like for me in a very intimate way, and then what I did. And I call the things that I did that helped me through, that gave me hope, what I call my saving graces in the book. And they were things like, my parents did take me to church, so I got a relationship with a higher power. I had that before even coming into the 12-step program. I had music in my life. My grandmother paid for piano lessons for us, and I ended up being a music major, so music was a big part of my healing. Exercise, I was a competitive swimmer, and I was a junior varsity,
Good for
was
you.
very
Yeah.
good at that, and that helped me. I remember some of my girlfriends used to say to me when I was feeling down, I didn't even know I was feeling down. They heard me,
They can
and
tell, can't they? I mean,
yes,
they can. They can tell when we're not feeling ourselves or being ourselves. Yeah.
and they would tell me, you need to go swim. Because they knew that it would help me. It would clear
Right.
my mind. And I never knew. I was like, really? And sometimes I feel like, I need to go play the piano, and I get my emotions out and I sing when I play.
Think
But
about something different, right? Yeah.
yes, and my message for those of you that say, well, I don't know how to play an instrument, I don't know how to sing, there's primal scream therapy. For me, that whole message is getting it out through the voice. There's
Right.
so many ways that we can get this negative energy out of us, but the key is getting it out of our body, because our bodies retain that negative energy, and that's when we get sick.
We
We
get
start getting
sick
sick
and
physically,
suicidal. Yep.
mentally, emotionally.
Yep.
So,
Good for you.
yeah.
So you're on this journey and you're doing so well now, and we can call you Dr. Liz. And what do you do now on a daily basis? Do you still swim? Do you still write? What do you do to stay on a positive forward motion in your life?
Yeah. And again, there's the whole series of things. As I share about that in my healing resources, my free healing resources that I have available on the website that I'll give your listeners at the end of the show.
Great.
And I
Wonderful.
share about like my daily routine, you know. And again, for anybody that's out there that's listening, that's looking for answers, it's not just one cookie cutter thing, you know. You'll listen to Rena and she shares what she does. You'll listen to me, you'll read what I'm doing, and you'll pick pieces and it'll work for you. So my first thing is get up in the morning, you know, try to get that stretching in, some whatever exercises I can get in. And sometimes even if it's in the shower, I made sure I wrote that down on my thing. Even if it's in the shower, do something, don't hurt yourself, don't slip, you know, but bend over, touch your toes maybe or something, just try to get, you know, moving more. For me, after
Good
the
for
age of
you.
50,
Yeah.
I realized it has to just be moving more, you know, and that's a goal for me, just move more. You know,
Instead
and
of
then
sitting and being
build on that.
depressed and
Right.
lethargic, and
Yeah.
yeah, good for you. One
And
thing I like to share with my listeners in the morning is I used to get up and watch the news. I don't do that anymore. I
oh
get up
God.
I know, it's so negative. I want to write something positive, read something positive, and then I
Mhm.
take the dog for a walk for 20
Yeah.
minutes. We walk the whole neighborhood,
Right.
and it's do something positive first thing in the morning. Because when you're watching the news or anything like that, or reading, the news, or going straight to Facebook on your phone or Twitter or whatever, it's so negative. So I leave that alone. Yeah. So you have to do
Yes.
something positive to keep moving in a forward motion.
Right.
Good for
And
you.
then another big part of my morning, besides the vitamins and the nutrients,
Yeah, that's very
aromatherapy.
important.
Yes, aromatherapy is part of my morning. And on my website, I have all of the links to all those things that you can go and get that I do. And when I do
Wonderful.
them, I put on some oils that have some very nice fragrance to them. And I, you know, like, you know, I kind of just get them in
Right.
my brain, you know,
Right.
and it uplifts me. And it's not one thing, it's whatever you find pleasing to you. Some
Right.
people might find sandalwood pleasing to them, but for me, it's more floral or citrus,
Right.
peppermint. So then I go and I do the one thing I wanted to kind of finish with it is the food, and I get a smoothie, and I keep my freezer stocked. I decided I'm sticking with blueberries. For me, I'm
Me
sticking,
too.
yeah, with those antioxidants. They're so full of antioxidants, and I do a blueberry smoothie. You know, I get my own like fat-free, no flavor yogurt. And again, you can play with it, whatever you want to do, but get some kind of fruit that's got the antioxidants, the
Right.
strong colors in it. And I use protein powder, which has got the green foods in it. You know, the spiritine. You know, it's got spirulina in it,
Right.
the algae, and I use the fat-free milk as well. But you can use apple juice, or you can use, you know, the non-dairy milk, whatever you want. And I promise you, Rena, and all you guys listening out there, I don't feel right if I don't have my blueberry smoothie, if I don't get that full shot of antioxidants. So instead
Well,
of
I'm
doing
right
shots of
there with
alcohol,
you.
I'm doing shots of
Lots of
antioxidants.
blueberries. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Well,
then
I'm with
a
you.
shot of
I
hope.
do a smoothie too.
Yeah,
Good for you. So I'm glad to hear that. I add kale or spinach to mine with the yogurt. And then I use raw pomegranate too,
yeah,
with the
yeah,
blueberries and maybe cherries and strawberries. So good for you. I'm glad
yeah.
to hear that. I
Hmm.
love my smoothies. And I'm so glad to hear that you believe that nutrition is part of the healing process and keeping
Hmm.
you healthy too, because if we feel sick mentally or physically, I mean, we just start breaking down. So we have to really take care of the mind, body, and soul.
Right. Yep, that's what my course is about, mind, body, spirit healing, and my bachelor's degree is in nutrition science. So it really
Oh, okay.
really started for me there, and I was even before that. I had friends that were into it back in the 70s. You know, I was born in the 60s. I'm a child of that era.
Right.
And so back then, you know, I had friends that were into health food and natural foods, and I was going to the health food store myself at 15, buying things that I wanted to eat and telling my mom, you know, I want
Good for
this. She'd be
you.
like, what the heck? what are you doing bothering me with that kid, you know?
So tell me about this course again that you have on your website. You say it's a free course or what is?
The course is no, the course is paid, but I have like a 99 $97 deal for the mini course just to get people introduced to it. And there's a lot of information in there. And then the full course is you'll get information about that once you find out. So yeah, just checking it out on my website. Get the free resources, the free healing resources, which
Okay.
I kind of share some things from my book, and then some going back to this like multiple things to do. I just added to the free healing resources a table that I'm really happy with. What I have on the left side of this table is all of the traumas that I've experienced. And again, it's not to rehash old stuff or get into negative. It's so people
Right.
can identify. And so people
Yeah.
can say, you know, I experienced that. And it was also for me to keep reminded of, hey, you know, what I've been through, what I've overcome, because some of those things I completely was not aware of. Like I said, my turning point was AA or NA, but I didn't say anything about, you know, what was my turning point for the sexual assault or anything like that. I wasn't even in touch with those things as being, you know, rape or whatever they were
Right.
until years and years and years later.
We don't
You know,
understand that that has brought us to, and we've gone through all the things we've gone through because of it.
I think it's a survival mechanism for me too, Rena, that I had to discreetly put these different things that happened to me in little pockets, or else it would have been too overwhelming for me. I
Right. I
think it's
gotcha.
part of how I was able to stay alive and not end my life.
Right.
And now, since I started writing the book, and writing is another thing that I advise for people. It may not work for you, but it worked for me. I wrote the first 25 years was really the worst of it, but there are some huge things that have happened since then. But I got it all down there, and I was just like, I wrote it in less than 90 days. Wrote the rough draft. No, I got it actually published in March, April, May, June, July. Yeah, rough draft was 90 days. Published in 120 days. My fingers were having trouble keeping up because there was so much there. So
Right.
I have a list of about 35 actual traumas that I experienced myself. Then I've got a little section that has related to like my family, things that traumas that my family experienced
Hmm.
or happened to a family member, like my first cousin's suicide, that had an impact on me. Then the last part of it is my family history, like with mental illness and things like that. But the
Right.
right side is this whole list of all these things that I've done for healing. And there's like over 50 things on there. So my first message is, wow, that's great. You know, my healing list is longer than my abuse and trauma
Right.
list.
And don't
And
you, I
yeah,
think you'll agree with this too, Dr. Liz, that um, I know for me, I went through counseling and I went through like 2 years of group therapy, and I thought I was done. I thought I was through healing, and then I would live happily ever after. And that's not the case. And I think that we all, whether we've had any trauma or not, we continue to heal, we continue to grow, we continue to become who we are meant to be by experiencing and learning new things too. I think you'd agree with that. So it's not
yes.
you're going to go through counseling and then one and done. And I want people to understand that too, because be patient with yourself. I thought, okay, I'm gone through counseling, that's enough, I'm done, I don't need to do any more work. Boy,
Right.
was I wrong. But some of the work is just educational. Some of the work is learning how to eat well. Some of the work is learning how not to watch the news in the morning, right?
Right.
So there's
Yeah.
a lot of different things to becoming who Dr. Liz is, who Rena is, who you are as a survivor. There's a lot of components and a lot of on the journey of becoming who we're supposed to be and who we want to be. So
Yeah,
I am so
absolutely.
glad to have you on here. And so where can people find more about Dr. Liz and your programs?
Yes, my website is www.drlizlifelaunch.com.
Okay.
So it
.com.
should be pretty easy. Trying to help
Doctor,
people launch their life. Yeah,
I like
drlizlifelaunch.com.
that. Life launch, life launch. Okay, so
Yeah.
great. So what else is, well, what's next, real briefly? What's next for Dr. Liz?
Okay, there's a lot of things that are next.
Briefly,
I,
I said,
I
briefly.
know, exactly. So thank you. I wanted to continue to get my message out there. So I want to continue to get on to podcasts and share.
Good.
I'm also writing my second book. I'm about to publish a little poetry book that has a lot of my poems that I wrote during those first 25 years of my life
Oh,
when I was going through
wonderful.
the worst of it.
Wonderful.
So, yeah,
And those are all positive steps to keep
yeah,
you moving into a positive. And I like to say a lot of people don't want to write a book, but
right.
writing is great therapy. You don't have to write it. You can put your therapy, write, and then you can have a fire burning,
Hmm.
uh, session to get rid of all that. Some people do that. There's just lots of rituals that can be done for that too.
Yeah, some
So,
people use God boxes. They'll put it in a box, they'll bury it in the ground, or they'll, tell a friend about it and just say, this is my God box. I don't want access to it, help me not.
right.
Just to
Yeah.
kind of release things.
And it's okay.
So,
So,
hmm
and like I said before, and you've said, there's not one thing, one and done. Continue to become who you are meant to be, and you know who that is. You feel it in your heart. And so I want to encourage people, there is hope, there is help, there's healing. And I am on the RAINS Speaker Bureau where they can call if you're looking for help too. But
oh, good.
yeah,
Yeah, and I want to add to what you've said now twice in this last few minutes, which is, become who you are supposed to become today. For me, it's all about what do I need to do today to get through this day sometimes, or what do I
right.
need to do today to maximize, my positivity today if I'm on the top end of the spectrum.
Yep.
And so, as you said, that changes sometimes from day to day because I have different needs today than I had yesterday or last year, and I'm going to have different needs next year. So,
Absolutely, because we're evolving and we're becoming more, and
hmm
enjoy that journey. And sometimes that journey is very difficult, but just know that you can get through it. And there are others that can help you. And so tell me your website one more time, and then we're going to have to wrap it up.
sure, www.drlizlifelaunch.com.
.com. Okay, great. Well, it's been fun. Thank you for joining me today. And Sir Thriver, go to her website, check out the resources, and it sounds like a great program. Good luck on your new book. Maybe we'll have you back after the new book is
Sure.
published. So
Awesome.
thank you for being here. And so, Sir Thriver, thanks for tuning in today. And I wish you peace, love, and ciao for now.
Thank you so
That's a
much,
wrap.
everybody. Yay.
Yay.